social studies. So you guys, welcome and congratulations for your high ranking there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Now, I know we've already talked about your high school history. We've talked about your high school government and economics, but what can you tell me about your middle school? What are the volumes that you offer? I know you have several different options. And then what do those cover?
Okay. Well, for the middle school years, which we consider grades 5 through 8, we have America the Beautiful, which is obviously American history, and From Adam to Us, which is world history, and Uncle Sam and You, which is civics, government, and economics for children in those ages. And we call them history, and we call our company Notgrass history, but they really are so much more than that. Take, for example, America the Beautiful and From Adam to Us. Every week, the student has a lesson on what you think of as history, the big things, who's in the White House, what's going on in the big picture, what's happening in America's relationship with the world. So that's one day. One day we do a person who lived at the time, so it's a biography of that person one day. One day we do a famous or not so famous American landmark, such as, they've gone out of my head, Route 66 is one of our landmarks. And then another day, we do some aspect of daily life during the time period. And the other day, we do an amazing place that God created that was somehow historically significant at that time. So let me give you a quick example. If you were doing the unit, now I've brought up the word unit, all of our middle school curriculum has 150 lessons divided into 30 units of 5 lessons each. So in every unit, whether you're doing world history or American history, you're doing one of those. We call it our American story or our world story. And then biography, God's wonder, landmark, and daily life. So each unit, you're having a much broader perspective on history than might be typically the approach of many other curricula. So let's take right after World War II. In the American story lesson, you'll learn about Harry Truman's presidency. You'll learn about America's heroic efforts to rebuild Europe and to feed 2 million people in Berlin when the Cold War cut off that city from the rest of the world, and those people were going to starve. And for over a year, American and British pilots fed those people and sent them coal by airplane very bravely. And so, and that gives you an example. With our curriculum, we are honest about people's failures. We can do that because we know we're all sinners in the need of God's grace. And so that is our basic perspective, that history is the story of people who are amazing because they're created in the image of God, but who do good things sometimes and bad things sometimes because we're sinners. And so while we're honest in that unit about prejudice in Major League Baseball, for example, we are also telling the heroic deeds of Americans all at the same time. And we feel like we might be a little bit unique in that, that we are honest about what America, for example, has messed up on, but we are also proudly patriotic about the amazing government we have that was established and what we do right. So during that, you know, when you're learning about Harry Truman and the Berlin airlift and all of that, you're learning about people getting their kicks on Route 66. And the wonder that week is the Painted Desert and the Petrified Forest, which is someplace people visited on Route 66. And we have a story, our daily life story is about America's favorite pastime at the time, which was baseball. So we learn about Babe Ruth, we learn about how baseball has affected our language. Well, you really gave me a curveball then. That comes from baseball. And then our person that week is Jackie Robinson, who was the first African American in the 20th century to play on a major league team. And he became a very strong advocate of civil rights, but deeply behind Jackie Robinson was a very strong faith in God. And we end that lesson encouraging students to honor their mothers, because that was the guiding principle of Jackie Robinson's life. And he was a man of deep Christian faith. And that is how he could withstand the prejudice that he experienced as the first African-American ball player of the 20th century. And the general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers was also a man of faith. So we are constantly weaving all of that into our curriculum. Like our high school courses, I can open it up and it'll tell you exactly what to do each day for a lesson.
And let me say that these lessons are beautifully illustrated. Charlene works hours combing through thousands of pictures and really does a great job in making the informative text really come alive, and it illustrates the very things that she's talking about. And let me also say that this is not just a hash and the high school courses a rehash. We touch on, of course, some of the same topics, but we take a very different approach. We emphasize the stories and the places in middle school, the kind of approach that a student of that age would really appreciate. Into high school, it's more policies and positions and that sort of thing. And so when a family, say, has an 8th grader and a 12th grader studying the same subject, they come at it from different perspectives and they really enrich each other in their study.
I like to describe that this way. In our elementary American history, the students learned that there was a President James Monroe. In our America the Beautiful, they learn about, they might read a paragraph on the Monroe Doctrine. Then in high school, there's a whole lesson on the Monroe Doctrine. So we introduce things at the appropriate time, we believe, for a student. We also write them so that, as Ray mentioned, if you have students in lots of different in various age categories, then you can all be studying something on your level at the same time. So when we finish our 12 years, we plan to have world history, American history, world geography, and something civics, government, economics like for each age group. That is one that we've actually finished. So for elementary, we have our 50 states, where they learn about the 50 states. And then in middle school, we have Uncle Sam and You, where they learn about civics. And then in high school, the half year of government, half year of economics. And I just say that to say how we approach things, the same subject, but age appropriate, we think.
Yeah. Well, and since we are talking about middle school right now, the question of reading is probably in some people's minds. Would your textbooks be something that a middle schooler could just take on their own, read on their own? We expect that very much out of our high schoolers, but is that something that also your middle schooler would be capable of?
It is definitely written that way. Now, if a mom's teaching style is to sit in the middle of the couch with all the children piled up around her and reading aloud and looking at the pictures together, that is certainly possible. But it is also written for the student just to sit down and read it on his or her own. Also, it is written to the student.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we, just full disclosure, I was telling them before, I used this last year with Lila, who is my youngest. She used it for middle school history last year. And we did really a hybrid approach because there were some days when I had time and we love to cuddle up and read. We've always done that. And history's the best to read always. So we would do that. But on the days when I just couldn't, she was perfectly able to go and be very independent and do it herself and then just come back and catch me up before we started reading again. So, but I figured that was probably a question that some people would be asking.
Yeah, that's a good question. And you mentioned literature. With every Notgrass curriculum uh, set, we have literature that we like them to read if they want to. But all of our curriculum is written with the idea that mom and dad know best. And if you want to include the literature, it's much richer if you can. But maybe there's a reason you can't, and that's okay too. But for example, when you're reading when you're learning about the Great Depression, uh, with the students read Blue Willow in America the Beautiful. And so through Blue Willow, the student can sort of live in the Depression for a while through a story. While in the curriculum, they're learning about President Roosevelt being in the White House and the building of the Golden Gate Bridge, and about what it was like to work in a civilian conservation corps camp, all at the same time. So if you can be reading Blue Willow and doing those at the same time, especially, your children need to be reading something. And so why not be reading something that relates to their history? It really streamlines things for moms, because particularly with From Adam to Us and America the Beautiful, you really could just add some math and science and let this just be your curriculum for this year. Now, we have vocabulary 2 or 3 times a week. We have creative writing 2 or 3 times a week. These are just suggestions. And then they're reading 10 books. And so you might want to add some grammar. I personally am one of those people who don't think maybe you absolutely have to do grammar through a program every single year. But I mean, I think it's very, very important to learn. But if you're doing vocabulary and you're reading these books and you're reading your history, and you're having a busy year for some other reason, you're taking care of a relative who is sick, or something like that, it can really streamline and make your homeschool experience less stressful.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Before we head out from here, are there any other things that really middle school parents need to know about this history program in order for them to really be successful with it?
It'll help them enjoy history and really get into it. We've had many moms tell us that history is the first thing our kids want to do when they start school in the morning, and they're excited about it. And that's what you want in your children.
Yep,
I was
absolutely.
just going to say it's fun. It's
Yep.
just so fun. In the 30s, we have a project where you have a candy and game night, and you eat candy that was introduced in the 30s, and you play games that were introduced in the 30s. So every week we have some kind of project that you can do if you want to and if you have time.
Yep. It's
So
super
it's
fun.
fun.
And I know that for our family, just through the years, history has tended to override everything else. We would spend a large block of time in history and then realize, oh, we've got to do other things too. So thank you guys for making it fun. Thank you for making it all available. So congratulations again on your middle school history win. And for the rest of you, we look forward to seeing you again next time.